Is that on? Yeah. Wasn't that fantastic? Wasn't that good? I apologise for not speaking in Dutch. I'll speak slowly. I first heard that being sung in Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean, and it was great to hear it in Dutch and not in French today. So great. So thank you for that experience this afternoon. It's really good to be here. I presume you're all teachers, except for the students. How many parents in the room? Who are parents? Who have got children at home? Good, thank you. I have a friend in Africa. He's called Cyril Dallé. Cyril Dallé runs UNICEF in Africa. And I was talking to Cyril quite recently, and I said to him, what's one of the most difficult problems in the world? Just think about that question for a moment. What's the difficult problems in the world? What do you think is a difficult problem?
Poverty.
Poverty. What do you think?
Tolerance towards one another.
And you?
Religion.
Religion?
To be abandoned.
To be abandoned, yeah. One more, what do you think?
Disease.
Disease, yes. I went through all those too. Terrorism, plague, all the terrible things. And then he asked me to do something, and I'm going to ask you to do it too. He said, Neil, would you hold a child of about 14 months in your arms? Would you hold a child of 14 months in your arms, please? Just hold them, as though you are nursing that child. Come on, men in the room, and students. You've got a child in your hand, arms, just hold it, and look at the child. Look at the child. Go on, look with love in your eyes at that child. There are 2 or 3 people that aren't doing it. Come on, can't you see the baby in front of you? Come on. Perhaps the baby needs changing. Thank you. He then said to me, you could stop doing it now, Jane. He then said to me, he said, Neil, that's the most important thing you've ever done in your life. And I said, why? He said, well, the greatest worry we have in UNICEF now is the breakdown of relationship between parents and their children. Apparently there's a critical distance in research. It's about that distance. And it's the way that a young child looks at you when you look with love at that child. And he said, there are 9 million orphans in southern Africa who don't have mothers to look at them. In the more developed world, like Holland, mothers are very busy. They're going around, and perhaps the child doesn't get that loving look. And he said, if we're going to do something in the world, we've got to bring a bit of love back to young children. And that really made me think, because I've had 4 children. I think, did I give them that love? And I just invite you to think about that. Often secondary school teachers say to me, Neil, why do we in secondary schools have to think about values? Surely it's the home. That's where values start. What about the 9 million orphans, the street children in Brazil? What about all the children that don't hear about any values and just come in front of you? Where do they learn their values? And that's the challenge. As you've learned, in 1996, I was invited to UNICEF headquarters with a group of colleagues from all over the world to think about how at the United Nations we could think of a program for developing values universally. And we thought about it, and we came up with the Living Values program that has just been published in Dutch. I'm really thrilled that that's happened. So I've been spending the last 2 years, I've been, by the way, for 18 years. I was a teacher, head teacher of several schools. I've taught in very difficult schools in the United Kingdom, challenging schools, and I've taught in other sorts of schools. So I've been an educator now for more years than I care to remember. But for 18 of those years I did work directly as a teacher. So I know a little bit about teaching. That's the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. And that's a group of students who have been making a presentation about living values to my UNICEF colleagues and myself. That's just to prove that I'm human. Some people think, well, Neil, you must be... Oh, a question I always like to ask at these events. Could you put up your hand if you're perfect, please? I always know there's someone that thinks I'm perfect. It's usually a man that thinks they're perfect. I asked a man the other day why he put up his hand, and he said, my mum says I'm perfect. But that's to prove I am human, I do human things. I don't just talk about values. Because that's the other thing you can be accused of if you get into values work. They think, well, who are you to talk about values? Why are you putting yourself up? I can tell you I am not perfect. Far, far from it. All I can say is I'm on a journey, as all of you are. We're all on a journey, discovering a little bit more about what it is to be a human being and how we can make ourselves and the world around us just a little bit better. And so I think it's important to think you have to be some wonderful super person to be involved in values. A euro for anybody who can tell me who said that. For those of you, I will read it. Changing thoughts. He who cannot change the very fabric of his thought will never be able to change reality and will never therefore make any progress. Change, real change, comes from inside out. Inside out. Who said that? Anyone? You're all too young, probably, to remember. Dalai Lama, good guess. Really good guess. No, it was Anwar Sadat. Anwar Sadat, president of Egypt, some years ago. Someone saying, yes, I knew that. Anwar Sadat. The point of saying that is, no matter what I or the previous speaker has said this afternoon, whatever we say, you can reject or not. This is a liberal democracy. Some say your democracy is becoming libertarian, but it is a liberal democracy. And therefore, I can't make you think anything. You can go out the door later saying, living values? No. That's up to you. I'm not going to change your thoughts or even try. I hope, though, I will inspire you to think it's worth getting into. You all know that person, don't you? Yes, Albert Einstein. Einstein. I've been a student of Einstein for many years, and what I've learned about his life is that his great moments, those wow moments when he discovered things, he said was when he was using his creative imagination, when he was using his intuition. I invite you this afternoon to use your intuition. Teachers can often be very much in their heads. They have been trained to think. Who are you into science here? Who are the scientists in the room? Thank you. Who are the mathematicians? They're teaching. There's some in the room. Who are the philosophers? Philosophers, yeah. You've all been trained in different ways, but you've been trained to use your head. What I'm inviting you this afternoon is use your heart as well. Listen with your heart. Because what we do is we start, when someone like me starts talking, you start in your mind arguing. And you say, oh, that's not right. Don't agree with that. That won't work. That's what we're trained to do. That's what I've done many times, sitting where you're sitting, listening to someone talking. What I invite you to do is listen with your heart as well. What you were saying about feelings and thought. It is funny. let's go on to that one. Yeah, do you ever stop to think how wonderful you are? Do you? You don't in Holland, do you? Would you look at the person next door to you and tell them they're wonderful, will you? Go on, tell this person they're wonderful. You're wonderful. You're wonderful. Tell them they're wonderful. You don't tell each other enough. You're wonderful. You're really wonderful. That's the first time you've really smiled this afternoon. You're really wonderful. We don't believe it, you see. We don't believe it. Why are you wonderful? It's because you send messages to the future. I've taught people who are now in their 30s. They often come up to me and speak to me. You are sending messages into the future. When teachers, you are long gone, there will be someone on this planet who will remember something you have said. What do you teach?
Geography.
Geography. What age groups are you teaching?
12 to 18.
12 to 18. So there are people out there who will remember you.
Oh, sir.
What will they remember? What will they remember about you?
Very strange behaviour.
Ah, very strange behaviour. That's good. Because that is what people remember. Whenever you stand up, people do not remember what you say. They remember who you are. And they say, do you remember that strange geographer? And then something will ignite them about what you taught them. Why do students choose particular subjects for examination? The research evidence is that it's not to do with the subject. It's to do with the strange people, just like you. Do you agree? Yes, that's right. Are there any other strange people in the room? Well done. In Living Values, we believe that everyone is okay. Our society, again, teaches you that you're not okay. If you're not good at a subject at school, you're not okay. I don't believe that. Everybody is okay. We're all different. We are all able in different areas, but we are all okay. Do you agree with that? Do you all feel okay? If you don't, see me afterwards and I'll try and make you okay. Do you in this school take care of each other? Do you take care of each other? A Living Values school is a school that takes care of each other. Do you have a staff room in your system? Do you have a staff room where you go and meet as teachers? There are two types of teachers in your staff room, I would guess. Are the teachers who will go in and they will go, isn't it terrible at this school? You know, the head teacher has given us more work. It's dreadful, you know. I have worked so hard with the students, no one's appreciating me. Isn't this true? What happens is that the person listening does this. We nod at the person who is moaning in English, moaning. Those are energy takers. Who are the energy takers in this room? The people that complain. The cynics amongst you. Oh, we've done it before. Come on, let me see you, the cynics. Oh, well done. The energy givers, of course, are the ones that receive the complaints of the others. And the problem is, when someone complains to us, our energy flows from us to the other person, and we're depleted of that energy. The truth is, thank you, Chris, for admitting, we can all be those sort of people. But the best schools that I go to, and colleagues, I've been to now hundreds of schools, the best schools are where the staff rooms are very aware of not complaining all the time, of actually being really positive as much as you can. That's a values-based school. Would I embarrass you if I asked you to hold hands? You have my permission not to hold hands, because you might not be comfortable. But if you are comfortable, would you hold hands with the person next door to you? Would you hold hands? If you are comfortable. Would you shake the hand of the person next to you? Shake them, that's right. Make them really feel good. It's wonderful. Thank you. You can stop. I did that in a school recently. I did that in a school, and I know I started a relationship. It's so important in a values-based school. Are you comfortable with each other? Are you able to say how you really feel and not give offence? It's being real. It's being authentic as a human being. That is what makes a really good school. A wonderful book. I'm sure some have read it in the room. Have you read A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl? Anyone? Thank you. Did you enjoy the book? Very much. It changed my life in many ways. What do you teach?
I don't teach.
You don't teach. What do you do? You're a parent. It's a great book. For those who haven't read it, it's about Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist, who was incarcerated in Auschwitz concentration camp. And what he did whilst he was there, he was one of the few who were lucky to survive. And he observed other people's behaviour. And he was interested to know, why do some people live and some people die? Just from their own sense of wanting to live or die. Not because they were taken off to die. And he found that the people who survive are those who have meaning and purpose in their lives. Meaning and purpose. Why did one person just lie on the bed and die, and another strive to survive? The second person had someone at home, or they had some thesis to finish, some reason to live. And he said, that's what we need to give our young people in the future, a reason for living. The second thing I remember in his book, you may remember this, was he said that if everything is taken away from us, the one thing we have left is the freedom to choose our attitude. You have a freedom this afternoon to choose your attitude. Whatever situation you find yourself in life, you may be up against a really difficult moment, but in that moment, you have a freedom to choose your attitude. Not just take on the attitude of the crowd around you. And he later said, that is what we need to give children. That realization that they can choose their attitude. One of my personal beliefs about society, especially in liberal democracy, I've just come from Miami in the United States, and I noticed it there too, is that we've gone out of our way as societies to give young people what we think is freedom. A lot of liberal sort of attitudes of freedom. It was as though things had got too much the other way, as though they were too restrictive. And my generation said, no, we've got to have a lot of, you can almost do what you like. Up to a point, that was a good thing. But what I think we didn't do was give young people the tools to actually be responsible for themselves, to actually be in charge of their own behaviour. And I think one thing the Living Values programme does is give young people the tools to be in charge, to be able to know when they're being bad-mannered or using behaviour that's inappropriate or being self-centred. It gives them that ability to think philosophically, to think as a philosopher. You know, why am I behaving as I am at this moment? Can I shift my behaviour? It gives you that. I believe, as many people do in the world, that the future of humankind depends on humanity adopting universal values. Universal because all religions, cultures, and systems of most reasonable people in the world will say that positive values such as respect, honesty, care, they're all values that should be shared. Now, the crucial thing about a living values program is that what you are doing is introducing a vocabulary. You're introducing words that perhaps young people have not explored. Have they thought when they're outside about what does respect mean? And this is where you and I, the previous speaker, connect. Because it is in that moment of thinking philosophically about respect and thinking about ethical dilemmas in our own real lives that we explore the meanings of these words. And by exploring them, we then can go to the next step, which is to put them into practice. Because there's no point in thinking about values if you don't put them into practice. There are the 12 values of the Living Values program. If you were in Africa, which of those values would you say is the most important? Anyone like to say which you think is the most important to someone in Africa, generally speaking? Tolerance and love, we hear at the front. Any others? Peace, respect, cooperation, honesty, freedom I hear, and freedom is the one that usually comes up. There's not a right answer to that, obviously. But freedom is something, colleagues, I think we in the West need to watch. We are losing our freedoms. I feel that very much when I'm in the United States and the United Kingdom. Freedom seems to be slipping away from us a bit. Here's a question for you. This is some research that was done in Australia. Able students, what do they say are the two qualities that they think are the most important in teachers? Which do you think are the most important? The two most important qualities in teaching. Honesty.
Teachers with fantasy. Teachers with fantasy.
Sincerity. They love children. I came across a teacher the other day, not in this country, who didn't like children. Amazing. Anything else? Inspiration. Inspiration. Would it surprise you if this care. Able students think the most important teachers are those that show care to them as people. They're not people that are just interested in their subject, but they show interest in the person. And the next one is trust. Students feel that trust is very important. The key. My friend and colleague, Professor Bart McKettrick, always talks about the smiling eyes of the teacher. All the teachers in this room, have you got smiling eyes? Students, have the teachers at this school got smiling eyes? Would you again have a look at the person next door to you? Have they got smiling eyes? Just have a look at them. Look at them. Go on, have a look at them. Have a look. Over my career, I've been a government inspector of schools as well as other things. And one of the criteria I used in inspecting schools was when I walked into a classroom, I would look at the eyes of the teacher. You can tell so much. And I would look at how the teacher was looking at the students. Poor teachers who aren't very good, don't look at students. They don't look as I'm looking at you. They look above. They're frightened of the student. The good ones look down. I bet you look at them. Yeah. That's why he's strange. A very supportive colleague. This is why this school needs living values. You all know deoxyribose nucleic acid, the double helix. This is a model for education, a model for teaching and learning. Most schools that think they are really good, pay their attention to content. The students must learn the content of the curriculum. Colleagues, that is important. Don't for a moment think that I don't think that's important. The school I was head teacher of had the most excellent academic standards. The achievement at our school was top. I do place emphasis on that. But what I find in so many schools is that the other side of the helix is forgotten. That's the dispositions for learning, the love of learning, and working with positive values linked to quality teaching. That's the other side of the double helix. Do you notice the helix is joined all the way down by lines? That's where you, the teacher, comes in. And what I believe is the relationships between student and teacher that's important. Students, can I ask you, do you think that... Now I'm going to put you on the spot now. Please tell the truth, and I don't mind what you say, but they will. Do you think relationships between you and the staff, the teachers, is important or not?
I think it's very important. Because teachers can stimulate you to work and to make you enthusiastic about the lesson. And yeah.
Thank you. Do you think, and be honest again, do you think you learn more from a teacher who has those positive relationships than a teacher that is ignoring the relationships?
Absolutely. I think, most definitely, the relation is important. And I have the feeling that I can learn more from a positive teacher. Never mind.
Can you give him a round of applause? Thank you very much. That colleagues, what's your name? Sorry. What's your name? Geert. What he has said bears out all the research that is going on worldwide. Research from Australia, for instance, which I will come to in a moment. That purple spot around the double helix, when I walked in your school today, I just stopped for a moment and I just used my intuition and feelings to say, what sort of school is this? What's its emotional climate? Every school that you go into has a different feeling. And the feeling is created by you. You create that. The people inside. If you visit a school at night, it doesn't have that feeling. So you create that. The best schools in the world are those that have a positive school ethos, a positive climate for learning. Those are the best schools. Quality education. What is quality education? Because this school, I understand from your head teacher, is one that wants quality education. That's what you're after. That's what you're going for. In the context of the 21st century. What I'm talking about today is not the education of the past. And I'm not talking about how we can all be happy together, although that's a part of it. I'm talking about what is crucial education for the 21st century if we are to survive. And I believe it's in these three things. Good quality education has to have quality teaching. And I know this school has quality teaching, right? You're all good teachers. It has to have that. You have to have community support. You have to have your community supporting you. And that can come and go depending on popularity with schools. But you desperately need that. But underneath those two things, you need a values-based environment. Once you choose to have respect and tolerance and those other values, then those values not only empower the students, like we have in the room, but they also determine your staffing policy, how the staff treat each other. It runs everything that you do in this school. And that's the difference, friends and colleagues, between values education and character education in the United States. Character education is doing something to students. Values education and the Living Values program is about life. It's a philosophy of education. It's all what Dewey said. It's about Nell Noddings in America at the moment. Are you familiar with Nell Noddings? Nell Noddings. It's about Montessori. It's about Buber. It's about Aristotle and the virtues of living. It's going back all through our philosophical tradition of what is education. Education is a conversation from one generation to another about matters of significance. Schooling is a subset of that. It's how we transmit our culture, our way of living to another generation. And I think, colleagues, that some of us, not in this room, are a little confused about what that should be. Values create the climate for learning. The climate for good teaching and learning. That's the research. Professor Terry Lovett in Australia, Bart McGettrick in Scotland, and myself in England. We've all researched what is good education, what are good schools. And the link between quality education and values education is now so researched that the Australian government have now invested $30 million into ensuring that every school in Australia is values-based. $30 million. That's the government supporting. I'm returning to Australia in April, May, to continue to help them go on to the next degree of thinking. But they have a blueprint for the government and for their society on how to do that, how to implement that into all schools. So that's why I say it's a movement for 21st century change, because throughout the world, education systems are now saying, we want things done differently. How can we do it? And the link is, of course, through this quality teaching and the link between values education. Very exciting, Australia. Not the only country. I'm working in the Seychelles in the Indian Ocean. The Minister of Education there is also developing a values-based approach to all their island schools. It's happening in so many countries. I've just returned from America and I'm doing my best to convince them that they need to do something there. Anyone want to come and help me next time? Can you tell me how much time I've got left? Because I haven't got a watch up here. I did have. How much time have I got? Enough time. 2 minutes more? 5 minutes more? More? Yeah, there are people who want to go home. A few minutes more. That's very kind of you. Emotional literacy. I'm very interested in emotional literacy. The degree to which you are emotionally literate as a person. You see, I've been standing here watching you, Chris. Yeah. And I've been watching other people in the room. I've been watching the students. And I've been watching your body language. How you are sitting, listening to me. This is something for the students to think. The best teachers you have, how do they stand? How do they present themselves? How are they, sitting and standing? We communicate so much of ourselves from our body language. And I invite you to think about that when you are standing in front of a class of children. Because what you're intending to communicate may not be what you're communicating. And you might have problems with some students. And it may be because you need to adjust that body language yourself. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've inspected many secondary schools in the United Kingdom. And what I do is something called tracking. Tracking is being with a group of children and following them around during a day to the various teachers that they see. What has really amazed me in that process is how students behave differently with different teachers. And I thought, why? And that one teacher will say, I don't like that group of students. Did you see how they behave? The next teacher will say, what a wonderful group of students. Or depending on that teacher. And often teachers don't realise, because one thing in many countries that teachers don't have is the opportunity to see other teachers teach. So they don't realise how students behave differently. I invite this school, if you don't do that, go and see what happens in other people's rooms. You probably do. So, body language is important. Can I spot? Yes, you're nearly there. I'm just looking for someone. You're nearly there, yes. So I'm getting a bit of body language that is worrying me. This is what I really look for. It's someone that puts this finger up here, this finger across their lips, right? This hand goes like this. That's it. Can you all practice this? All right? You practice this one, right? Finger up here, one finger across the lip. That's right. One under here. Now cross your legs. Cross your legs. Cross your legs. Cross your legs. Can you do that? Right. That's called doing a Hillary Clinton. Doing a Hillary Clinton, and it means, Bill, I don't believe a word you're saying. It's true. So whenever I see that in a class of children or a group of adults, I know that you're not believing what I'm saying. But what you have to look for in body language is not one thing, it's a series, it's a pattern of behaviour. Often people think that, like, you're folding your arms. That does not mean to say that you're... Yeah, it's cold in the room, isn't it? I'm warming up because I'm generating heat. So, please can I invite you, if you're going to be a living values school, watch your body language. And students, you watch yours too. And, perhaps you can all change. As you walk down the stairs, watch how you're moving around those stairs. Is it conducive to a values-based school? I'm going to quickly go on now. Yeah, in a values-based school, find time for yourself. Find time for yourself. Find time for each other. When I'm talking in the UK, I often am working with head teachers, and I say to them, please can you encourage people to be human beings, not human doings? Do you teachers feel sometimes you're on a conveyor belt of doing all the time? A conveyor belt, do you know? Got it? Yeah, you're sort of going along. You're having to do this and this and this. I understand in Holland you have a lot of part-time teachers, and I think that's a good idea. It gives you time for reflection and doing other things. So you need time for yourself. Remember to be and not just do. Be a human being, not just a human doing. What's all this about, really? The point is that in a values school, you have to think about your own behaviour. You can't be always thinking about somebody else's. Because when you get up, I believe this was one of the points you were making, the moment you stand up in front of other people, you are the model of being a human being. The young children in your school, the older students, they are learning from you, not geography, I'm sorry. But they are learning what a human being is. You are the model of what being a human being is. And that really is a tremendous responsibility. Some of you will go out and say, I don't accept that. I'm not going to do it. You know, I do the values in this school. I talk to them about being respectful. Why don't you respect me? I went to a secondary school in another country and they asked me to talk to the staff about values. And in the afternoon they asked me to observe the school. I saw teachers shouting. I saw disrespect time and time again. And yet the staff said to me at the end of the day, they wanted their students to be more respectful. And I said, well, it's you where the respect starts. If you give respect, you will receive it, unless the person is disturbed. If they need some help, then perhaps they won't give it back. But if they see you all modelling, the great challenge you have, all 80 of you in this school, is consistency of behaviour. In a small school, 6, 12, 20 teachers can all agree on their behaviour. They can say, we will all agree not to shout. But when you have such a big staff, it's very difficult. So my challenge to you, what I would invite you to think about is, what is it as a staff you will agree, as a whole staff? If you accept values, what are the behaviours that you will say, yes, we all will do this? Because what I promise you is that if you go through that process, you will find a tremendous improvement in the way things are here. This is a good school. I believe someone told me it was the best school in Holland. Yeah, someone did, and not in this country. They said, Neil, you're going to the best school. If it works like a microcosm that will then spread out to the whole of Holland. Because they will say, if they can do it there, we can do it everywhere. Do you believe that?